All right. If I did my job halfway right, we are live. Okay.
We're live.
All right. So good morning, good Saturday morning to anybody who's checking this out. We're excited to come to you with our fourth episode and our first start of a series on Two Brothers Talking. So as you can see, two brothers,
We're
in all the
talking.
ways, yeah, talking in all the ways that you want to interpret that. And as we get started, the series that we're going to kick off today is called the Vision series. And Mark and I, we've frankly got more material than we know what to do with. It's really about what God calls us to do, and a lot of that just comes through life experiences, week over week. And this Vision series was really kind of hitting home for us. So we thought, this will bless some folks. So a couple of quick things, and we'll jump in. One is bear with us because this is the first time we're actually doing this in two different locations, but we're committed to our calling, and we committed to do this every other week, and at a minimum on Saturday mornings, and we're going to keep that commitment. So.
Yeah.
So as we do that, just kind of bear with us, and we'll welcome any feedback you got to along the way. We'll take it, constructive or appreciative. So jumping in there on the series today, this may expand, but today we have three episodes or topics, if you will. The first one that we're going to talk about today is purpose and identity, designing a life that matters. And this is really catered toward probably from a men's perspective and for men, but I think a lot of these principles apply across the board. The other two, real quick, are growth and mastery, becoming who you're meant to be, kind of mastery of self, and some tools to do that. And then the third to date is relationships and impact, building a life of connection where you don't feel isolated, and how you build that connection. So kind of jumping into today's topic, which again is purpose and identity, designing a life that matters. A lot of that design kind of starts, Mark and I were exchanging on this. It starts with a vision. And if you're going to design something, like anybody who's ever created, any of you who've created something, whether it's you're a carpenter and you're building something out of wood, or if you're creating a artistic masterpiece, or if you're designing a home or a room, and you're redecorating, you got to start with a vision. Like, you can't just jump into it and expect it to just manifest, right? There are people who can do that. Those are abstracts. They're very rare. Most of us need a vision. So with that, Mark, I'm gonna start us off with just a question. Interested to get your perspective. So what do you feel, before we talk about vision? What do you feel it means to have a life that truly matters? Like to you personally, what does that mean to you? And then we'll talk maybe a little bit. Let that transition into what are some of the core things that might mean to most men.
So when you talk about having a life that matters, for me, I think my first thing I think about is you're important, you're needed, right? Because if I matter, that means like I bring something to the table that is needed. I'm fulfilling something that this world needs. So that's my first thought. So like if I matter, and I don't want to take us into the conversation too quickly, but it does connect to the fact that I was created for a reason. And is my life fulfilling that reason for me being here? So all of that kind of ties into our conversation later, but it's like, if I matter to this world, to me, that says there's some needs out here that are there, and that the creators placed me in this world to help fulfill those needs. I matter to Earth, if that makes sense.
Yep. So I guess, just to poke on that a little bit, I know you're trying to hold the goodness, but let it flow, man. Let it, because I guess my question would be, like, what are you holding back in that? When you say I don't want to get into the conversation too deep, or too quickly, what punchline were you holding back?
Well, it's just when you're talking about purpose, vision, destiny, all these words, they go back to the creator. The creation itself doesn't know why it's created unless it's told. And so to matter is basically what you're saying is something's been created for a reason, for a purpose. There's a design to it. And so for me to like reach my fullest potential, or to matter the most, I need to know what that is and walk in that, so that whatever the creator created us for it all kind of flows together according to his design. And if the creator is like a mastermind, then it's super important that I trust his design and his plan and discover it as soon as possible. So that's kind of what I was kind of holding back a little bit.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. And I guess just kind of answering that on the other side, I think a life that matters really is defined by your values. So like what's important to you? I think the answer to creating a life that truly matters for me personally is going to be unique to me, right? So for instance, it's going to come from a place that starts where you started, right? One simple example, I was adopted at birth. Then my value system has a lot to do with that experience, right? It has a lot to do with taking care of other people, with choosing to do that even when it's not convenient, with forgiveness, with creating environments that are safe for other people, and like just being a contributor to the world. And to my environment and community, wherever that is, that's a big part of my value system. But it started in a place where I started, right? Like it came from where I came from. So that's the best way I could describe it. But I think that a life that matters has to be, unique to you. Although for a lot of men, because we're wired it's in a certain way, a lot of our values will overlap from one another. You and I share a lot of common values, for instance, but our values are not synonymous. Right. So I think that's good. That's what makes teams of men coming together to do great things so fantastic. Because it's this overlapping connectedness, but then there's this complementary element that's unique to each person that they all compound to do something really cool, right? And that all comes back to like feeling like your life matters.
Yeah.
Said differently, I guess it's really tough to exist, particularly today as a man, if you feel like your life doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. And there are a lot of men that are going through the motions. There's some of them are working really hard for something, but they don't really know what it is. And I think I welcome your opinion on this. So I'm gonna turn this into a question for you. I think a lot of them are looking for what matters. They're striving and they're working hard, but it's not fulfilling. But I think what they're searching for is what matters. Do you feel like you see that a lot? Have you experienced that? Like how does that like what's your reaction to that statement?
Yeah, no, I definitely think men specifically, but in general, we're all searching for like this fulfillment, to feel like we matter, that we're important. And so I think in order to discover that, there's like this journey that's needed. So if you're in a hurry to feel a certain way, you're going to probably take a shortcut and settle for something that's not true fulfillment, that where your life matters, but it doesn't matter like it should. Like you kind of start settling for all this other stuff. So I think for men, like you mentioned a second ago, like we're all kind of wired a certain way, but then we're also unique. And so in this way that we're all similar is like, am I echoing?
You're good. Go ahead.
Okay. It's like this need for recognition, this need to protect, to be valued. And so I think that piece of us, it tempts us to kind of go this other route sometimes, kind of the shortcut, money, fame, sex, all the other stuff, kind of success. I built this, I'm the man. Like there's this temptation for us to do that. And so we have to kind of wrestle with that sometimes.
Yeah. And that's so let's tie that into what designing a life that matters. So what I just heard you say is you separated two different types of matter. One way to matter, or a life that matters, is something that's outside of you, right? Like you're creating value for others, for yourself, for community, etc. For creating value for God, right? You're doing His work. The other type of matter I just heard you describe, you mentioned sex, money, like kind of short-term fulfillment. It's almost like scratching the itch, right? Like it's an immediate, short-term, kind of fulfillment, but it's not anything that has any lasting impact, right? Frankly, even money doesn't have a lasting impact. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it likely doesn't have a lasting impact as it relates to really creating a life that matters. And if you think that I'll say there are a lot of folks in the world that have had or have, excessive amounts of money or access to lots of resources, or have been very, fortunate, and maybe even to the extreme degree entitled, and, with those resources, and they would admit deep down, if they were being honest, they don't have a life that matters to them. Right. So all those things that you just said, I think we probably spend more of our time chasing actually than having a life that matters.
Yeah. We substitute kind of the temporary fulfillment for true lasting fulfillment. So like, I look at success, it can be a perverted form of what we're intended to have. And so I think I'm more in control of this one here. This one here requires me to be dependent on the creator, to wait till he reveals certain things to me. He forces me to go through stuff, process, preparation. This over here, I get to be in control, and I can make these decisions based on how I feel. I become God. I become the creator who's kind of determining what I want to do when I want to do it. And that's, it's kind of this is like a journey we have the whole way. There's this, you're like this rocking back and forth. I could be in ministry and still struggle with, am I going to build me the biggest church in the city? Am I going to, it's just always this constant struggle that we have as men, and we all wrestle with it,
That's right. Well, so then I guess, how would you, why do you feel that there are so many men who actually succeed in a lot of those? You framed it as a perverted version of what we're intended to have, right? And that I never heard it put that way, but that makes a whole lot of sense. Why do you feel like those men that have those things, or that have maybe achieved temporary, milestones within that category, are so fooled by, I'm just calling it like I see it, like we are fooled in the moment that we have found that life that matters. Like I now matter because I can, go buy a car that is really substantial, or I can go buy a house. So now I matter. My life matters, right? I'm doing all the right things. Why do you think we fall victim to that?
I think we fall victim to it because that's what we see all around us. So it's so easy to be pulled into it, because this is the main example we see from day to day. So you see people building stuff. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have TikTok. All these things point to us. So you're constantly seeing other people. You're constantly seeing what other people present as, hey, I've succeeded. I'm doing well. Look at the best of me. You see that on a continual basis. And so it's not attractive to wait for God to reveal things to you, or to wait for his timing, his process, his purpose. It's like you're being pulled and pushed in a certain direction. And it's hard for all of us to resist that temptation. If I'm around you and I see, you got a nice car, you have a nice house, you just come off a vacation, then something in me is like, oh, I need to have those things. And if I don't have them, then I'm like, okay, how do I get there now, as opposed to putting in the work that you had to put in? It's just a constant pull from society and culture. So how do you, from your perspective, how do we resist that as men?
I think one way we resist it is to not let it be a subject that only sits within ourselves. And what I mean by that is, use the example you just mentioned. You mentioned, so let's say I come, let's say I'm working hard, and then one day I come over to your house and I see, you guys have gotten a bunch of work done, or you bought a new house, and then we go look in the garage, there's a new car out there that you bought for your wife, and you're excited about that, and you tell me about this other financial win that you had in your life with one of the kids or yourself or something, and And I'm sitting there, to your point, like to play your example out, I'm sitting there going, man, I don't want what you have so you don't have it. I want to have that too. How do I get to that? Right. And what never happens that in my experience is you in that scenario wouldn't say, how important are these things to you, Burrell? And I can at least hip you to how I got there, but I'm gonna tell you right now, it's gonna be different than what you think. It's gonna be work, and if you're willing to do that work, and pray, maybe God will send these things to you too, because God also brought them to me. I didn't just go get them by myself, and like have that conversation so that when I walk out of that house, if you know that I'm weak toward those things, when I walk out of that house, I don't walk out of that house with the burden of like, now I'm going to go chase something else, not God, not purpose, not values. I'm going to go chase what I just saw at your house for the next 10 years. Well, now I just wasted 10 years. And that really is how it happens. We don't want to admit that, but that's the truth. The other side of that equation, that's heavy on the pride side. But by the way, just to put a pin in that's that in its most extreme version, what I just described is that crab in a barrel mentality. It's like I'm not gonna give you the game because I don't want you to actually have what I have.
Yep.
I want to always feel like I'm ahead of you.
Yep.
Right. And maybe that's why it's always stood out to me, because man, I operate so opposite of that. And I don't understand why anybody would want to do that. But the other side of that game that to the question you asked is, I go in there, I see all those things, same story. And then I don't ask you, I don't ask you before I leave that night when we're sitting in the living room talking. And when I get ready to go, I don't just say, Mark, so we don't have to talk about it now, but man, I got to be honest with you. And I want to get past my pride in this. I'm really struggling to generate some of these things, these outcomes that you generated. I don't know if I even should generate those outcomes. I don't know if those things are for me, but I would really like to learn from you about what you did to get to these things and help me understand it, because I know it was hard. Like I know this didn't just land in your lap. You weren't just uber fortunate and you were asleep, woke up one day and you had a new house or a new car. Like it wasn't that easy. So can we talk about that? That vulnerability on one side or the other hardly ever happens. And I think that's why this is so pervasive. I think that's why so many men are looking at other men and what they have, and there's this envy, and that takes up a lot of men's thought process.
Yeah.
And if that was replaced even at a fraction with seeking out God, seeking out your purpose, just kind of self-reflection, if that was replaced with any of those things or all of those things, our lives would be a lot more meaningful. And they wouldn't just be meaningful to us. They'd be meaningful to the people that love us and the people that are around us.
It definitely takes first word I thought about is like you mentioned pride and being humble. It's a death. Like something has to die in me that I don't see what you have and want it from a bad place, like a lust for it. Like, because if you really think about it, I'm sitting here on my patio, someone over in some remote place in Africa, they would think I'm a multi-million. I mean, like they would like, man, if I could trade places with that brother right there, it would be the greatest thing ever. And here I am, I might be sitting here and talking to a friend and like, man, I want a new Lexus too. Like, why can't I have a new Lexus? Like all that stuff kind of just, when we talk about purpose and then you talk about that mindset, I mean, you're like going the total opposite direction. Because it's like there has to be some kind of contentment within you that says, God, whatever you want me to have, I'm good with that. And that's a hard place to be, because that's not what we're shown on a daily basis. As a man, I got to succeed. Like if I'm a real man, I make money. I got a great job. People know my name. Like this is what we've been told, manhood is supposed to look like.
That's right. Yeah. The idea of legacy is today. The idea of legacy is for the man. It's not for everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. Like one really good example, in my opinion, and I've got some recent experience with this, and I've actually got several recent experiences with this. You think about how you plan for the future, and you think about like what your legacy is going to be and what your value system leads you to create in the form of impact and life that matters for other people. That can look like you investing in something all your life that you never benefit from because it was never for you, right? Like a life insurance policy is a very simple example of that. Most
Right.
people don't go out and get substantial life insurance policies, especially Black and brown people like us. They don't go out and get life insurance policies because they're not the ones that are going to benefit from it, and we're selfish, and we
Yeah.
won't do it, even though it costs you $5 a month, and you lose $5 a month, literally $5 in change or cash. You lose that every month at least.
Yeah.
You won't go get a life insurance policy for $100,000 so that somebody you love and care about that you've been taking care of and spending a whole lot more than $5 a month on can benefit later.
Yep.
And we won't do it. We just won't do it because that's not the form of legacy that we want.
Right.
We're seeking value that we can benefit from instead of seeking value that our family and our loved ones and that God's purpose and God's will can benefit from. And that I really hope that touches somebody because boy, I feel my whole life growing up, I've being adopted into an older family. I've carried more caskets than I am years old. So when I think about how many folks I've seen, pass and all the family stuff that comes around that kind of stuff, it's so self-centered, but it's not malicious. It's how we're taught. Just like you said, it's all we've seen. And it's going to take men breaking these curses by doing something different, getting really uncomfortable, and showing their sons and daughters something different so that they can see what legacy and what a life that matters really is about. It's not about the person. It's about everyone else.
Yeah. And I think
it's okay if you forget my name as long as you benefited from it. Like I don't care about being remembered in that way.
Yeah. I think that's why we kind of miss the fullness of why God created us, because it definitely is not a self-centered thing. And if you focus on self, you're gonna miss what God has for your life. I think at the moment you put yourself in there, kind of hyper focus on yourself, you're gonna probably miss it. And I think the example that comes to my brain is Moses. Moses, he feels something in him that says, go out to his people. And his people kind of reject him. Who made you a leader? So he leaves, goes into the wilderness. So by the time God shows up and says, okay, it's time. You didn't miss it, Moses. This is your purpose. It's time now. And he's like, no, I'm good. Because who am I going to say sent me? Because I already experienced this. I'm already hurt. They said, who made you? That's what they told him when he left. He's like, who made you our leader? Who made you a guy? What gives you the right to lead us? So it's still in there. He's still hurt. And so God shows up and he's like, who do I say sent me? And then he's like, and I can't speak well. So it's like self that's going to cause him to miss his purpose if God isn't merciful on him in that moment. And so it's like the more we allow self to influence purpose, you just gonna miss it. You're gonna mess it up, you're gonna pervert it. It's just gonna become something that God didn't intend it to be.
That's right. Agreed.
Go
ahead.
I was just gonna ask you, like, how do we even define purpose?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's a good segue into what I was about to ask you too. So I think purpose is something in its simplest form, the way I define it, because it's probably outside the dictionary, answer. It's something probably pretty personal. The way I define purpose is what's the thing that drives me, like the thing that actually pushes me to get up when I don't want to do the things that are uncomfortable. What's the thing that I can't stop thinking about? The thing that I get up and I go to sleep with on my mind, right? And here's why I use that answer, because that thing can be something bad too.
Yeah.
A purpose, like what you're destined to do is not necessarily the same as a man's purpose. A man does choose his purpose.
Okay.
if I chose, if I was infatuated with money, then my purpose is chasing cash. That might not be the right purpose.
Gotcha.
That might not be what God called me to do. That might not be what I'm destined to do. But it is my choice. And we all make choices. We all have a choice of what we make our purpose. And I think you can be called toward things. And I think, bringing this together, because I'm interested to hear your answer on that same question. How would you define purpose? Like bringing it together, I think when your purpose, like your day-to-day drivers, align with your calling, your life explodes. Like your impact to God's will and the world just blossoms in a way that you can't even plan for. Like it just kind of happens, and you stop worrying about recognition. You stop worrying about how much am I gonna make for this? Like you're not worrying about monetizing everything. What you're worrying about is the purpose. When those things align, and then your purpose somehow then connects, because it's a calling to satisfying what God what God has told you through the Word and through spiritual connection and relationship with Him that matters.
Yep.
And now with that alignment, it's really difficult to not have joy every day. It doesn't mean you will be happy every day. It doesn't mean that you won't have hardship, but you'll have joy deep down every day that helps you overcome a lot, because those things are on the same page. But your purpose is your choice about what gets you up every morning, what drives you. Well, how would you define purpose?
No, I would agree with what you said. The only caveat for me, I wish I had a different word for it, but for me, like purpose is like why you were created. Like what was the expected end for why this thing was created? So for me, that can truly only come from the person who created the thing. I think we have our own purpose and goals that we shoot for. I wish I had another word for that. Because for me, like the purpose, there was only one intent, God has the intent for why He made me. That's my true purpose. This other thing is kind of my purpose for my life.
Right.
So it's kind of, I don't know how to distinguish the two, but I definitely think purpose is like, this was created for this end. And I don't know what that end is for each person. It's a unique thing, but we all have to be it's going to go into like, where does purpose come from? But we all have to discover, be given this at some point in our lives.
That's right. Well, and I think you described, I think you named them. It's God's purpose and it's man's purpose.
Yeah.
And when those things line up, that's where magic happens. Right. Like that. I think you just called it out. Like the way you said that, I think was perfect. Well, so before we get into, trying to connect this to an exercise for the listeners, why don't we hit one more piece of this puzzle? Do you think purpose is something you discover, or do you think purpose is something you create?
So I think a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think so. If we establish the fact purpose,
that's a cheating answer.
What you say?
That's a cheating answer.
That's the best I got. So if we establish the fact purpose comes from who created a thing, right? I think at some point God communicates to us, this is why you were created. It could be direct communication. It can be subtle communication. It can be, hey, you're in this situation. You start discovering stuff about yourself. Like however He does it, He communicates, this is why you're here. I think the creation part, like, do we create our own purpose? I think there's some wiggle room within that. So I don't think like, hey, God created me to be a shepherd, a pastor, a leader, and then it's like, and Mark, this needs to look exactly like this. Like I don't know that He does that. I think when we need to be like heavily directed, He does that. And then I think there's moments where like, this kind of looks like how I want it to look, because I'm a creative person myself. He's given me gifts and talents. So there's this wiggle room that's there. So I think it's a little bit of both. Like I have some say in it, but ultimately the foundation of it comes from God.
Got it. Yeah. I think I agree with that. The analogy as you were talking, I was visualizing parent and child, right? So a parent and child relationship is actually really similar. And in the respect that when you let's say you were a primetime baseball player, and or softball player, man or woman, doesn't matter, and you went you played college, you played pro, maybe semi-pro or something like that, you played abroad, and you are projecting that on your kid because you made your child, like you in your mind you made your child, and your child is going to be this thing, and you're teaching them along the way about sportsmanship, teamwork, discipline. And then as they grow up, they wind up playing in high school, they get to college, and they wind up taking those same learnings and those same values, and they wind up applying it toward medicine. And that discipline and that teamwork of building, great teams in hospitals and doctors' offices, they go apply those same things. That's not what you intend. That wasn't your original purpose. But sometimes when you try to like shoehorn them into what you thought, that now that relationship could get fractured, right? So God doesn't do that. God doesn't shoehorn us. He leaves it to us. He has a design, and that design evolves with our decisions. That's how I see it, at least. Like just my interpretation of the word and my relationship with him. I see it as an evolution. Like my purpose today was not my purpose a year ago. My purpose in a year from now will not be my purpose that it is today, right? But there is the theme of the purpose that will always be connected. And the theme that has, just to overshare, the theme that has stuck with me is creating value for other people. So that is the theme that sat with me my whole life. And it has grown into a tree with branches of other sub values, right? But that's probably not what my mom had in mind.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it's the parenting parallel is probably the closest thing you could ever come up with to the father, capital F, right? Like that parallel. So why don't we jump into like a couple of questions and then an exercise? I guess what would you think are some questions that listeners could ask, and men and women could ask, that would uncover their purpose, their why? Like what are questions they can ask to find out how to best align their personal why to God's why?
Yep. I think the first question is, God, why'd you create me? I mean, really, that simple. God, why'd you create me? And then knowing that the answer to that question is, it may not come like verbally to you. It may come in the form of a burden that you have for something, for a problem, or it may come from, hey, there's a mentor in your life who starts seeing things in you and starts to direct you on, like, man, you might want to think about XYZ because I see some things in your life that you might not notice. So I think it is the simple question of, God, why did you create me? That'd be the first question. And then I started looking at, like, what burdens do I have? Like, what stands out to me? Yeah. What about you? How would you answer that?
I think like the way that the questions I ask myself atop just asking God similar questions that you just described, like, Lord, is this what you want me to be doing? It usually does come from a burden. Now that you said that, it does connect some dots, because I hadn't thought about it that way. But it's like, do you want me to go through this? Like, do I have to go through this? So there is some of that. I think the one question that really jumps out to me is, like, what energizes me? God put a compass, or maybe a compass is the wrong word. We have a compass too. But God, I think, put a bit of a radar inside of all of us. And the radar he put in me, I listen to, right? One element of that radar, the Bible refers to as discernment, right? So when I think about like being able to identify what it is that I'm supposed to be doing, what my purpose is, I just reflect on what energizes me, what connects deeply to me, right? If it's on the surface, I kind of know that, okay, that thing might be good or bad, but that's probably not my purpose, right? So it's like, what makes me, what truly excites me and energizes me deep down in my core, and then the other side of that, what breaks my heart down to my core. Because the opposite of that is probably my purpose, or solving that is probably my purpose.
Yeah.
Right. So what breaks my heart? What really hurts? And then what energizes me? What motivates my core? And I think the hardest part about those questions, and the question you asked too, is like really listening for the answer and not being impatient. And then also, let's call them out, like looking out for Satan to tempt you down a path that's not your purpose. So you're right, because I mean, he knows the Bible better than anyone else. So like he will tempt you and he will direct you in other ways that are not appropriate. So and the only thing that's going to help you figure it out is your relationship with God, right? Yeah. So I think some of those are kind of my questions. But I guess for the listeners, just to leave everybody with an exercise, and then maybe Mark, like we can do this exercise live, at least a part of it. We don't have to do the whole thing, but I want to challenge anybody listening, to anyone that gets their hands on this, to, when you think about designing a life that matters, you think about your purpose and your identity. Do this exercise, write it down, and then want to encourage you to share it with someone you trust, to give you some feedback and to maybe just talk through it. The exercise is this: just write down 3 moments or times in your life. It could be at any point in your life, where you felt the most alive, you felt the most energized, like the most connected to your deep purpose. Another word to use could be you felt the most satisfied in life. But I would challenge you to find the excitement. Like, not satisfaction sounds very passive, right? So really excited and you felt alive. And then determine, when you write those things down, write 1, 2, 3. What were they? Who was there? What was happening? Why did you feel alive? Why did you feel excited? And after you write that down, then analyze those 3 scenarios, those 3 moments, and determine, what did they have in common, right? Well, how were they connected? So the exercise is write down 3 moments you felt the most alive and connected to your purpose or excited, and then write down the theme of those things, right? What did they have in common? And don't overthink it. Very simple. Like, purpose is simple. Like Mark's question, God, why did you create me? It is that straightforward. And if you're unwilling to ask that question, you're unwilling to be that vulnerable, it's pride and fear. And we all share it. We all share it. It's not unique to you. We all share it. But if you do this exercise, it could be a good way to crack that egg open and see what's inside, right? Yeah. From a purpose perspective. So Mark, so I'm going to ask you that question. Hopefully that gave you a little time to think about that too. And I'm not asking you for 3 moments. I'm just asking you for 1. What's one moment you felt the most alive?
So generally speaking, when I'm standing in front of people and communicating the word of God, whether it's young people, whether it's in a pulpit, I come alive. Now, it's funny because, like, in the beginning, the first time I did it, I got sick to my stomach, and I was like, I will never do this again. Like, and then I did it again. And so every time I go, I don't care where I am, I get this like sick feeling in my stomach. I'm like, why do I do this? And then as I begin to do it, something in me just like, this is why God created me. I'm supposed to be communicating to people. Like, something in me comes alive, and I have this burden, I have this excitement, I have this passion for it. And then I know, in this kind of unique way, God has gifted me to do it in a certain way that other people don't do it. And so I think for me, it has always been, when I have a platform to communicate God's word, principles, or whatever, like, I just know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. There is the feeling and the excitement, but then it also it's crazy because, when you talk about purpose, like, it also speaks to your weakness. Like, God doesn't just choose you because of your strengths and your gifts. Like, it also connects to your weaknesses. I don't think people don't understand that. And I'll show this quick verse in 1 Corinthians 1:26. Paul says, look at your calling. He says, not many noble, not many wise, not many mighty. He says, God has chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And he explains why. He says, because so no flesh will glory in his presence. So what I realize about, like, my purpose is, like, it speaks to, like, my gifts and my strengths and my passion, but it also speaks to my weaknesses. I'm a people pleaser. So imagine I go up and I have to speak in front of people, but I'm all constantly worried. Like, are they going to accept it? Do they like how I preach? Do I like how I spoke? You know, like this is always here. And so God gets the glory as I do these things in spite of my weaknesses, knowing that it's not me really, it's Him the whole time. And so I think that's an important part about purpose. It's like we can't just hyper focus on our gifts and our strengths and our passions and not recognize that, like, but you know what? A part of that is going to be your weaknesses. Paul, you're gonna want God to take certain things away. He's going to keep certain things there to keep you weak, so that He continues to get the glory. So for me, like, to go back to your original question, it was like when I'm standing, communicating the Word of God, that's when I feel this sense of fulfillment. And so I'm gonna throw it at you.
Yeah.
How do you answer that question?
I think the moments that I feel most alive, one moment that jumps out to me, heavily, is sitting down with either a colleague or someone I've met, even a stranger, out and about, one of my kids, my wife, anybody in the extended family, and they're expressing a challenge to me, and I have the opportunity to help them overcome that challenge. Like I do believe that one of my core purposes is to be a problem solver. Like I can think about things in a manner that's not overly emotional and that's really objective, compared to how I used to do when I was younger. And that's just kind of developed through hardship. And so those moments of helping other people solve problems and sitting down with them and really listening, making them feel heard, because they are, like, it's not a manipulation. They are being heard.
Right.
And really just like challenging them a little bit and helping them through a problem, and I don't mean solving it for them. What I mean is teaching them to fish, right? So actually teaching them a tool that allows them to solve a problem later, like that. That's one of my legacy points. And it took me a while to understand that, but now I fully lean into that and I accept it. It has a lot to do with why we're doing what we're doing right now. Like I think that, like, those moments are, and there's thousands of them. I couldn't even just pick one, right? I've had probably 10 in the last couple of weeks. So with all those parties I just mentioned, strangers, people at work, friends, my kids, and those conversations are usually very, they can be very heavy, depending on the scale of the problem. But that moment, I feel the most alive, and I feel like God has blessed me to be. When He blesses you to get fulfillment out of something that doesn't materially benefit you in the world, that's a good sign of your purpose, right? I get maximum fulfillment. And when I walk away from those conversations, I got zero material benefit. Like nobody put any money in my pocket. Nobody was giving me anything, because that wasn't the point. Right. So
I was going to ask you, what about that? Because when you were talking, I totally was thinking problem solver. Like before you even said the word, I think you might have said problem fixer. You said something, but I was totally, when I think about you, I totally see that. What about that is the hardest for you? Like what weakness could easily stop you from doing what you're gifted and talented to do?
Yep, solving the problem. So at my core, I can fall into an enabler, role. Like I can fully enable somebody, and every day I'll be solving their problem for them because it makes me feel good, and I like to please people around me, and I like to give people around me good experiences. So I can lean into the need for that acknowledgement, the need for that recognition by solving the problem for them myself. And then what I and this is the hardship, just to close out that full loop. This is the hardship I learned through to not do that. I wound up solving everybody's problems, and everybody's freaking problems was sitting on my docket to solve all the time, every day, every week. And they're chilling while I'm sitting here stressed out trying to solve their problem. And I realized, well, hang on a second. I don't think this was how it was intended. And I used to get upset with them. And now what I've learned, I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago. What I've learned now in my mid 40s is like, no, I should have been upset with me because I let that happen. I had zero boundary. I was so interested in pleasing them and making them happy, making them, feel good about our relationship that I wasn't actually doing what was more important, which is teaching them how to solve the problem in the first place, right? Themselves, and let them go do it. Like that's the benefit, and I think that's the weakness. Like the need for that gratification and the need for that recognition can lead me to, led me to at one point solve the problem. So I'm aware of that all the time. And the question I ask myself is, the next time they have this problem, will they need me? Right? Because if the answer is yes, then I fell victim to my weakness.
Yep. That's good.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, cool. So to the listeners, Mark, thank you for doing the exercise. I know that was a little ad hoc, but hopefully sometimes it's easier for folks that want to do something to see it done live, right? And to see it done openly and vulnerably. We didn't script or plan that. Like that's just, it's just an exercise. And hopefully anybody watching, you understand that that's very vulnerable to do, right? So we're going to encourage you to do that. Again, the exercise one more time. Write down three things, or three moments, rather, three scenarios where you specifically feel very alive and connected to your purpose, where you get excited and motivated, like you're still thinking about it, and it was 10 years ago, right? Like that kind of moment. And then theme, what's the common theme? What's the commonality across those moments? What do they have that's similar? And then use that to dig into your purpose, right? Find more of those moments and themes and create them. Right. Pray to God for your discernment, your understanding, your wisdom to seek out those moments, and he'll lean them to you, and he'll explain why those moments are important over time. Right. So with that, we're gonna wrap up. I think one more highlight as we go. The Vision series. This was the first episode of 3 that we have. We may turn it into 4, but right now the next episode will be growth and mastery, becoming who you're meant to be, which is why we needed to lay the foundation of vision and purpose first. So we hope that this blesses you. Mark, appreciate you for bearing with me, trying to get all the technical stuff set up, and hopefully we'll do this again and not let not being in the same place stop us from doing it.
Amen.
All right. We'll holler at y'all later.